Logo. A red film reel scrolls by, then turns black and stops at an angle behind a large V. Vision Films. Wide white-capped waves brush across the ocean's surface. The sun gleams mauve along the water's surface. White birds soar above. The waves roll in and out, crashing against the peninsula. A red and white striped lighthouse stands in the center of the land. A man stands atop the lighthouse, wearing a black coat, captain's hat, and eye patch. He sips from a red mug as he gazes at the sea. The keeper steps on land, his left sleeve pinned up. Sea lions lounge and cuddle along the cliff's mossy edge. Underwater, a young pup swims. A young blonde girl sits on the couch before a man and woman. She wears high-top Converse with pink laces, striped leggings, and a purple sweater. She smiles softly. In a bedroom, Autumn, a younger girl, rolls out of bed. Scarlet, a curly-haired, blonde toddler, shakes her crib. Autumn pulls back a blind and peers out. The girls dump their dresser. Scarlet wears a fluffy vest. She rushes outside with a suitcase. Scarlet charges at the car. Scarlet and her sister lean into the glass at the front door. The older sister sits outside, chin propped up. Through the frosted glass, the man flails his arms. The girls dash past their oldest sister. The man storms off. Sporting hair with purple highlights, the woman pauses and crouches beside the girl. She kisses Avila's head, then joins her husband in the car. Avila covers her face and sobs. A sock monkey dangles from the passenger door handle as the couple takes off. Autumn gazes at her older sister and frowns. Scarlet wraps her arm around Autumn's shoulders. Morning. In the kitchen, Autumn licks her lips. She gathers the condiments in her arms and sets them on the kitchen counter. She opens a drawer, pulls out a pocket knife, unfolds it, then lays down 2 slices of bread. She opens the jelly. Using a knife, she spreads jelly across a slice of bread. Autumn takes the jar with both hands and dumps it over the slice of bread. A large glop of strawberry jelly lands on one side of the slice. She grins and spreads it. She reaches for the peanut butter, opens it, then peers inside with one eye. She tosses the empty jar over her shoulder and scrunches her brow. Smiling, she reaches across the counter for an avocado. She cuts the avocado open haphazardly. In bed, Avila turns her half-covered face as she flutters her eyelids in the light. An alligator head and a gold trophy rest on the windowsill. Autumn sets down a paper sack as Scarlet bounces inside a cardboard box. Scarlet leans over and falls to the side. Autumn crawls under Avila's covers. Avila brushes back Autumn's hair. Avila drops her gaze. In the bathroom, a woman turns on a faucet and lathers her hands with a yellow bar of soap. In the bathroom, the woman, Miss McDade, washes her face in a purple bathrobe, then dries it with a towel. The woman tosses the towel onto the bathroom counter. She steeps a tea bag in a white mug as she steps into the hallway. Under the covers, Avila grins at her sisters. Miss McDade walks down the hallway. With her lips curled back and eyes wide, Avila turns her head toward the hallway. Autumn pokes her head out from the doorway and looks up and down the hallway. Her sisters follow her as she runs out wearing a bathing suit and drags a bedsheet behind her. She ties the sheet around the bathroom doorknob. The woman walks on as Scarlet chases with bared teeth. Avila runs after Autumn. She leaps with her arms outstretched for the back of Autumn's fuzzy bare-hooded vest. Autumn's hand latches onto Miss McDade's robe. The woman sucks in a deep breath and walks off. The girls scramble away. In the bathroom, Autumn climbs the counter, opens the window, and pulls out the screen. In the living room, Miss McDade plops onto the couch as the girls duck down. Scarlet bats at a houseplant with the woman's bathrobe tie. Autumn grabs a pile of tied-together sheets and tosses them out the window. Autumn's cowboy boot slips on the soap. Avila catches her as she falls backward. Then the bar of soap falls to the floor. Miss McDade looks toward the sound. The sisters climb the bathroom counter. Miss McDade turns toward the bathroom. Avila tosses the brown sack to Autumn, then follows down out the window after her sister. Scarlet climbs the counter and picks up a bar of soap. Miss McDade turns and sits up. Scarlet stands on the window ledge and peers down. As her sisters spread one of the sheets open, Miss McDade rises. The sisters sneak past the side of the house as the woman looks up and down the hallway. She shrugs and returns to the couch. The girls run through the yard past the living room window. The girls pass under sheets that sway in the wind on a clothesline. Avila climbs the gate and opens the latch on the other side. The sisters run through the open gate. At the beach, a woman waxes a red surfboard. She passes the girls, who walk hand in hand down a sidewalk. White words appear. Autumn Fiore. Autumn beams at Avila. Avila von Goosebottom. Avila's eyes crinkle as she glances toward the ocean. And Scarlet. Scarlet builds a sandcastle. Scarlet crashes her hands through the sandcastle. The sisters share a smile as they walk down the sidewalk. Autumn jumps into the sand, boots first, then pulls one off her foot. Scarlet hops in the middle of a circle drawn in the sand, as Avila and Autumn chase after seagulls on the shore. Scarlet and Autumn grin, their bodies buried up to their necks in sand. Scarlet pulls her dirty wet vest over her head. Autumn and Avila splash in the shallow turquoise water. Scarlet tosses her vest into the clear blue sky. Avila lifts her head and closes her eyes against the bright sun. She breathes deeply as the corners of her mouth curl up. Palm trees, umbrellas, and colorful tents line the beach. The title, The Island of Lost Girls, appears in childish white letters between the trees. A black and yellow checkered flag flutters in the breeze. A sign reads, Swimming, with an arrow pointing left, surfing pointing right. Scarlet climbs the railing of a white, unattended lifeguard shack. Autumn plays in the sand, while Avila sifts through a pile of green seaweed. The lifeguard shack reads, No lifeguard on duty. Scarlet leaps off. She rolls down the sand, as her sisters build a sandcastle by the shoreline. Avila reaches for the brown sack. She pulls out the sandwich and grimaces as she takes a bite. In a flashback, Autumn cuts into the avocado on the kitchen counter. She squeezes out the avocado onto the half-made sandwich. Autumn squishes the avocado through her fists. With nostrils flared, Avila slowly chews the sandwich. A blue crab scurries past. The crab drops down onto the sandcastle. A young boy plays nearby. Autumn takes the boy's bright yellow bucket. The crab lands in the bottom of the bucket. Autumn takes the bucket and races toward shore. Scarlet carries the bucket to the water, as Autumn lands in the sand next to Avila by the sandcastle. At the water's edge, the boy watches Scarlet in her bright yellow bathing suit. Scarlet looks back over her shoulder at her sisters on the beach, then turns the bucket upside down. She picks up the fallen bucket and carefully dumps the crab. Her silhouette stretches across the sunlit sand. A wave gently carries the crab. She runs from the waves as they chase her. Then she slowly steps back and gazes at the unmoved crab on the shore. Scarlet dips the bucket toward the crab. The crab lands in the water. Scarlet bends down. As she reaches for the crab with one hand, it raises a claw at her. She pinches the crab shell between two fingers and lifts it out of the water. Scarlet steps further into the water, the crab between her fingers. Its colorful shell gleams in the sunlight. Gentle waves lap the yellow bucket on the shore. The boy points towards Scarlet, who jumps over an incoming wave as it splashes against her chest. Then, she wanders further into the ocean, the crab grasped in her small hand. Nearby, a dark-haired girl with an orange bodyboard passes her in the water. On the shore, the boy reaches for his mother. Scarlet wipes the water from her face. The dark-haired girl glides towards Scarlet on her bodyboard. The boy points as the bodyboard slams into Scarlet and pushes her under. On the beach, the boy tugs at his mother's arm. The sisters turn their heads. Avila pats at the sand. Squinting, she looks around the beach. The sisters race towards Scarlet as she struggles in the water. Avila picks up the red surfboard. The girls swim towards Scarlet with the surfboard. The boy leads his mother to the ocean. He stands on his toes at the edge of the water. Our view focuses on the shack, which reads, "No lifeguard on duty." Autumn stretches out her arm towards Scarlet. Scarlet grabs Autumn's hand. A wave crashes into them, knocking Scarlet and Autumn off the surfboard. From underwater, Autumn reaches for Scarlet. Autumn grabs her sister by the waist and pulls her to the surface. The bucket rolls around on shore. Avila helps Scarlet onto the surfboard. A huge wave careens toward the sisters. Scarlet dives under the wave. The water calms as the girls latch onto the surfboard. The boy runs to the water and grabs his bucket. He looks back over his shoulder toward the ocean. Avila studies the water behind her. The boy watches from the shore. Avila swims away from the surfboard. The boy waves at them from the shore. Avila studies the beach, then swims back to her sisters. The boy flaps his arms and chases his bucket. The mother picks up her son. Seen from the shore, the girls' heads bob behind the cover of a wave as the mother turns and leaves. The boy waves over his mother's shoulder and places his bucket over his head as she carries him away. The sisters float in the water on the surfboard. In a flashback, a woman wearing a red dress hangs laundry on a clothesline. Autumn wanders through the hanging clothes, touching them as she passes. She turns to her sisters. She turns back to the woman and looks around the yard. A dog's bloodied mouth barks through the open slits of the wooden fence. Autumn gazes up at the blue sky, where white birds soar above. On the surfboard, she cups a hand around her eye and studies the sky. Avila raises an arm to her head and peers at the ocean around them. Our view hangs far above the girls as they float in the deep teal water of the ocean below. The bright sun hangs lower in the sky. Scarlet clings to Avila's back and stares at Autumn at the other end of the board with bright blue eyes. Avila and Autumn each hold a small twig. Autumn frowns. Scarlet drags a finger across her throat. Avila repeats the gesture. Autumn carves an O into the surfboard wax. Then Avila draws a line through her X's. The sisters gaze at a flock of seagulls flying past them, as the sun hangs lower in the sky. A large sea creature swims below the surface of the dim water. Our view darkens as it passes by. Now, sunlight beams through the leaves of swaying dark green kelp plants. Avila's legs dangle from the edges of the surfboard above. A lone fish swims by as she reaches for a stick beside her. Autumn slowly lifts her head and rises from the surfboard. She pushes her wet hair from her face and rubs her eyes. Avila gently rows with her stick. She points to the island. Water crashes and foams over the large rocks around them. A herd of sea lions lounge on a rock. A pelican dives from the cliffside to the water below. Autumn points to a bird with a forked tail. Avila rows toward the island, a grin on her face. Waves crash in a long ripple against the bottom of a tall stone. The sisters slowly near the cliff on their bright surfboard. The red and white striped lighthouse stands tall above the top of the cliff. Avila squints up at the lighthouse and blinks. The girls float toward the entrance of a large, dark cave. A seabird pops out of the water beside them, which then lands on a nearby rock. Dark boulders in the cave loom before the sisters as they drift closer to the entrance. The top of the limestone cave rises high above them. Murky shadows leer under the surface, beneath their dangling legs. A plant snakes beneath them, as a few sea lions swim past in the shallow water. Scarlet cranes her head up at the cave walls around them. Avila's eyes widen as she studies the cave. Bird poop splashes Autumn's face. Avila points inside the cave. Autumn grimaces. Our view slowly pulls away from the girls as they travel further into the cave. Water gently laps at the striped rock at the cliffside. The dim daylight softly glimmers off the water's surface. Soft clouds float above the lighthouse. The girls venture further into the cave. Scarlet slaps a hand against the wet stone of a nearby rock and pushes away from it with one finger. Avila pushes the board away with her stick. The sisters glance around the dark interior. They peer at a sea lion pup. Above, it cuddles with its mother as they pass. Behind it, a large male sea lion lifts its snout high. Another sea lion swims by close to them in the water. The sea lion dips beneath them, then resurfaces and lands next to the others on a nearby rock. The sea lions fight. The sea lions bite and smack against each other, their mouths open and teeth bared. The sea lion pup sniffs its unmoving mother. Dark tidal water pulls at the cave's entrance. Underneath, bright green seagrass twists in the strong current. The water rises as the waves grow stronger and crash against the rocks inside the cave. Scarlet glances over her shoulder as the water shifts the board backward. A large wave races toward the baby sea lion and its mother. The sea lion pup slides backward away from its mother and lands in the choppy water. It struggles as the foamy waves crash around it. Sea lions dive into the water around the girls. The dark blue water moves swiftly around them as the current grows stronger. Avila rows with her stick. A sea lion dashes beneath them as Autumn struggles to tread water. The current tosses Avila's slender body. Avila swims swiftly toward a nearby rock. She scrambles up the mossy rock as the sea lions flop wildly nearby and splash into the water. Scarlet paddles and scans the water around her. Scarlet paddles to one half of the broken red surfboard. She grabs onto it as the water pushes her around. She sits atop the surfboard, her face twisting as she surveys the water and the sea lions dashing around her. Autumn treads water, which foams and splashes around her. Autumn paddles towards Scarlet atop the broken surfboard. An agitated sea lion jumps from a rock and dashes toward Autumn as she gapes under the surface. Autumn swims away and climbs the nearby rock at the cave entrance, then scrambles up beside Avila. Avila leaps into the water and swims towards Scarlet. A wave pushes Scarlet away from her. Avila swims swiftly to her youngest sister as the waves push the board backward toward the sea. Her hand slips off the edge of the surfboard. Scarlet's brow furrows as a wave grows larger behind them. The wave billows as it peaks toward the sky. Avila reaches out her arm toward her sister. Avila's head disappears underwater, her arms flailing above her. The water crashes into Scarlet's small back. Avila careens through the water as it pushes her back. The huge wave smashes into the rocks behind them. The water scatters through the air as the waves smash against the rock. Nearby, a sea lion is pushed by the heavy current. The water crashes violently against the cliffside. Autumn flinches at the wave. Avila's head bashes against the rock. She stops moving and sinks deeper into the water, A hand reaches into the water for her arm. Autumn tightly grabs her hand, pulls her out of the water, and drags her to the mossy rocks. Autumn crouches next to her sister, who lies belly down on the rock, then picks at the spaces between her own toes. Avila rises on her hands and knees and studies the area around her. Foamy water washes through the rocks as she glances around. Orange crabs scurry as they're pushed onto the rock. Autumn watches a larger crab reaching for a smaller one. Scarlet clings to the surfboard. Autumn looks behind her. Autumn clambers up the rock. Her brow furrows at the tight cave passage before them. She looks to the ocean, then back to the cave. Avila bends down to peer at Autumn, who crawls through the entrance of the passage. Autumn moves through the narrow rock. Avila follows her sister into the passage on her belly. She looks over her shoulder as water pushes a sea lion pup onto a rock. Water crashes into them as they crawl from the passage exit. The pup scrambles from the rock and shakes water from its head. The small creature bends its neck to and fro as it looks around the shore. It glances around, then lowers its head onto the rock. Scarlet's body clings to the battered surfboard. She lifts her head and looks around. Sunlight refracts off the sparkling surface of the water. She wipes water from her eyes and peers up at the lighthouse, then climbs atop the surfboard. The broken surfboard bobs in the water near the cliff's edge. Gentle waves lap along the border of the island. One side of the board tilts up into the air as Scarlet slides down into the water. It floats away from her as she paddles after it. Underwater, sea plants drift beneath the surface as she swims along. She sinks chin deep as she treads water and squints as water splashes her face. She reaches toward the nearby surfboard as it floats just out of reach. With her arm outstretched, she grabs the board. Her eyes go wide as she clings to it. Scarlet rests atop the surfboard, her knees tucked under her and her chin in her hand. The heads of a group of sea lions dot the water behind her. They bob with the waves as she slowly drifts. The ocean grows darker as the gray-brown bodies of sea lions pass beside her in the water. On a cliff rock, a pair of small black crabs feed on another crustacean. Avila and Autumn wander through the dim cave. Autumn gapes as Avila pulls off a clam from the cave wall. Autumn grimaces at the orange and purple contents of its shell. Avila moves back to the cave wall, plucks off another, and inspects the small mollusk in her fingers. She brings it to her mouth. She takes a bite and chews slowly, then takes another bite. The flesh stretches as she pulls it from the shell with her teeth. Autumn gapes at her sister. Grimacing, Avila chews as Autumn gazes down at the shell in her hand. Autumn peers down at the shell again. Flashback. At a restaurant, she sits at a booth next to a woman in a red dress, as a server brings over an ice cream sundae. She smiles at the woman, then down at the large plate of ice cream as she digs into it with a spoon. In the cave, Autumn chews heartily at the clam in her hands. At the restaurant, she plucks a cherry from the top and pops it into her mouth. In the cave, Autumn pulls at the clam's flesh with her teeth. In the booth, she looks around. Her mother pushes through a door as Autumn eats. She licks the ice cream from the side of her mouth and stares down at the table. In the cave, Autumn peers up at Avila. Autumn searches the restaurant from the booth. She watches her sisters play through the window. Avila marches through the shallow water and reaches for Autumn. The sisters embrace, and Avila kisses the top of Autumn's head. Avila frowns at the rising water as it splashes around them. Outside, a large wave crashes against the cave entrance. Drops of water fly through the air as the waves break against the tall cliff. A sea lion jumps through the waves. The water bubbles around it as it glances back at the cliff. Scarlet splashes her arms in the water as she sits atop the surfboard. The sea lion swims directly toward her as she looks back at it over her shoulder. Its body twists in the water as it chases a school of small fish. The girl watches the water as it splashes against the cliff. The waves push her closer to the cliff. Under the surface, sea lions dash through the water. The green-blue water rises with a foamy wave. A sea lion surfs the water, gliding quickly along on its belly. Scarlet watches while paddling her arms through the water on her stomach atop the board. She glides on the surfboard as she rides the oncoming wave. A sea lion plays in the water beneath her. Another flies through the air. The sea lions twist around and play under the surface. One pops up next to her and dives under the wave. The sea lions dart away as a large bull swims slowly toward them. Water bubbles behind it as another sea lion pokes its head out from the surf. It turns and quickly joins its companions as they jump and dive through the foamy water. Scarlet waves her arms in the air. She paddles her small hands in the water as the large elephant sea bull swims up close to her. She studies the water beneath her as the bull dives back under the surface. She wobbles on the board as she peers down. Eyes wide, she grits her teeth as the bull resurfaces nearby and splashes her, then dives back down. The water stills as she floats along with the ocean. She gazes down at the water beside her. The bull grabs the bottom half of the board and pulls it down into the water. Scarlet plummets into the depths. The empty surfboard pops back onto the top of the water. Bubbles trail behind her as she kicks her feet wildly and resurfaces. A fish passes as she submerges, her eyes wide. She whips her head around as she scans the water, then gapes. The bull surfaces, its massive bulk sliding through the water. Cheeks puffed, she ogles it. She pauses, then swims back up to the surface. She kicks her feet wildly, then dips under and swims away as the bull looms behind her. Bubbles trail in her wake as the bull follows her little kicking feet. It circles and nudges her in the stomach with its massive snout. Scarlet gapes at it, her hands held to her belly. She claps, and it eyes her with a steady gaze. Her smile drops as the bull charges, her arms flailing as she reels backward. The screen goes black. Seaweed drifts amongst the rocky shore. The water bubbles as the bull surfaces and tilts its head into the air. In a flashback, Scarlet and Autumn raise their hands toward a rainy sky. Scarlet blows a spit bubble. In the yard, Avila bounces on a trampoline as droplets of water bounce off the surface. Avila front flips through the air, while her sisters bounce beside her. An unconnected spring hangs from the frame of the trampoline. A pink bike lies pitched over in the grass nearby. A barefoot woman wearing black leggings stands on the porch. She reaches down to collect the potted plant, then heads into the house. Avila spreads mud on the ground. Rain streams from the pavement into the street gutter below. In the cave, water rushes around Avila's feet as the sisters make their way deeper into the cave tunnel. Avila peers behind her for Autumn as the water inches higher. Autumn trudges through the water in the dim cave and follows closely behind her sister. The water continues to rise as it splashes against her thighs. Above, Avila climbs through the passage. Gentle light reflects from the water onto the barnacle-covered cave walls. The passage in front of them narrows as they slide through. Water rushes through the small opening. Their eyes go wide as they turn quickly in the other direction of the cave. Avila's long hair floats behind her as she dips into the water and studies the area below. Light glows through a larger opening in the rock below. Her brows crease together as she looks back in Autumn's direction. Avila dives into the water and swims ahead of her sister, who watches with one hand on the cave wall. Avila makes her way through the underwater passage. Autumn crouches down and dives in after Avila, the water bubbling as she propels herself forward and kicks her legs. The small gap above the surface quickly fills with water. The water glows deep tones of emerald and teal as they pass through. Their hair streams behind them as they kick their legs and puff out their cheeks. They dodge through large underwater boulders and long strands of kelp plants growing from below. Avila eyes the sparkling surface of the water above and swims toward it. She surfaces in another dark chamber of the cave. The water continues rising closer to the rocky cave ceiling. She dives back down as her sister enters the chamber. Air bubbles spew from Autumn's mouth as she paddles to the surface. A wave engulfs her face as the water rises and forces her under. Air bubbles stream through the water as she swims rapidly toward her sister. The seaweed grows dense as she moves through the underwater chamber. She bats at the plants as Avila swims ahead of her. Avila nimbly navigates through long swaying strands of seaweed and kelp plants. Autumn swims into a large mass of kelp plants. She writhes and twists in the water as her body becomes entangled. Avila glances over her shoulder at Autumn, who pulls at a strand wrapped around her neck. Avila propels herself back through the water toward her sister. She takes hold of the seaweed and tears it apart as she pries it free from Autumn's neck. The sisters kick their legs as they move through the chamber. Autumn surfaces into a brighter, larger area. She spits out water as Avila pops up behind her. They wipe water from their eyes and study the open cave around them. Autumn points farther ahead. Sunlight streams into the open cave from above. The sisters close their eyes as they share a warm embrace. They paddle forward through the rocky cave side. The layered rock arcs around them above the water. A crab scurries across a nearby rock while they climb back onto land. Avila helps Autumn up a slanted boulder. Sun rays stream down on them from above as they crane their faces upward and balance on top of the rock. The lighthouse towers above. They hug, then Avila stares up through the hole. The lighthouse stands beside the large cave hole, casting a shadow in the bright sun. Purple flowers border the sinkhole, while grass covers the land above. Below, the water laps at the edge of the island. In a flashback, bare trees dot a green, slightly sloped field. Scarlet swings from a tire swing. A black and white border collie tugs on a rope on the bottom of the tire. Scarlet's foot slips as she and Autumn climb a partially built tree fort. Autumn steadies Scarlet as she climbs. Autumn carries a paint bucket up the wooden plank, then sets it on each board as she follows Scarlet up the tree. Above them, Avila crosses the wooden rope bridge. Avila paints a board with sage green paint. Scarlet climbs higher toward Avila. Avila pulls her youngest sister up by an arm. Scarlet straddles the tree trunk as she moves higher. Below them, Autumn tucks the bucket of paint under her chin in one arm, while she uses the other to pull herself up. She struggles, then readjusts the paint bucket. She places the bucket handle between her teeth, then moves it over her head. The bucket wobbles and slides above her. She looks around, then down. She reaches from board to board as she climbs the sloping trunk. As she steps onto the bridge, it wobbles beneath her boots. She steadies herself, the paint in one hand. She lets go of the tree with her other hand. Her boot slides as she takes shaky steps across the bridge, which has no railing. Avila shakes paint from another bucket onto the plywood platform near Autumn, which splatters onto the bridge below. Autumn's boot slips on the paint-slicked edge of the bridge. She drops the bucket, then bends over to retrieve it. She rises and reaches for a beam that runs above the length of the bridge. She wobbles as she moves. Autumn slips and tumbles off the bridge to the ground below. Dark green blades of grass flutter in the breeze, and orange paint drips down from the bark. The dog chews on something nearby as Autumn lies flat on her back in the grass. In the present, Autumn's deep blue eyes reflect the sky. She peers up through the hole at the lighthouse, which towers high above the two sisters. Autumn's body tenses and her wide eyes flutter, her hands clutched together. She steps forward and grips the layered cave wall. Avila lifts Autumn's leg and boosts her higher up the rock. A wave splashes the two sisters. Autumn loses her grip and falls. The water sucks her back, away from Avila and the cave wall. Autumn runs back to Avila. Avila boosts her up again. Her young sister reaches an arm over her head and grips onto a protruding ledge in the rock above her, then bends down to Avila below. Autumn tightly grips her sister's hand as she hoists Avila up beside her. Tide water rapidly flows into the open cave. An incoming wave crashes into the rock wall under the girls. Avila's toes grip the rock as she climbs higher, with her sister following underneath. The water far below grows choppy as the tide continues to rise. Autumn grips the wall, her small limbs bend and tremble. A small black crab with light-colored claws creeps sideways next to Autumn. On a deep ledge above, a thick rope hangs from decayed machinery and dangles off the side. Avila's head pokes up beside it. The crab crawls toward Autumn. It crawls onto Autumn's hand. Autumn teeters, then slips sliding down the steep rock face. She grabs hold of a jutting ledge. She hangs onto a starfish. Its grip loosens on the rock. Avila climbs and pulls down the rope and lowers it to Autumn, who reaches for it. Gripping the rope, Avila climbs onto the ledge as the starfish pulls away from the rock. As Avila nears the rusty yellow tractor, she hoists herself up and reaches around inside for the pile of rope. Avila gapes at a crab which rests on the elbow of a skeleton inside the tractor. The eye-patched skeleton collapses onto Avila, who pushes it away. She cranks back the gear shift. The rope dangles lower as the skeleton falls and drops the mug in its hand. The starfish strains from the weight. Avila pushes out from the tractor. A crab crawls across the skull. Avila grimaces as she eyes the rope stretched across the skeleton's lap. Below, Autumn reaches for the rope as she hangs from one leg of the large starfish. Autumn plummets with the rope as she falls. Avila grabs the rope. Her sister stops abruptly and dangles just above the rocky bottom. Avila tugs on the rope and falls back onto the skeleton. She loops the rope around the gear shift and pulls, and the machine shifts forward. The lever moves as she tugs the rope while taking several steps back. Autumn slowly ascends, her legs splayed as she twists in midair. Bending, Autumn stretches her legs to a nearby rock shelf, then swings closer as the rope shifts against the tractor leg. Above, large rocks protrude from the bottom of the sinkhole. The lever pulls back, and the tractor shifts toward the edge of the ledge. Rocks and dust fall from the tractor as it hangs from the edge. Autumn swings across the gap, plants her feet onto the ledge, grips onto it with her toes, then climbs up. The tractor lever shifts further back. Autumn's feet slip from the rock wall, then she swings backward through the air. The tractor shifts into gear. Autumn swings back across the gap. Her feet hit the rock wall as the rope slides over the lever. Her body sways with one foot on the ledge. The crab approaches the lever, and Avila stumbles back. The lever shifts as the crab climbs across. The crab ascends the lever. Avila gapes at the crab, which perches on the rope before her. The crab wiggles its mandibles at Avila as it climbs. Avila's face twists as the crab continues to climb. The crab nears the top of the lever, and the tractor rolls forward. Autumn strains at the end of the rope. Avila pulls back on it, her brow creased as she watches the crab. From atop the lever, the crab stretches its claws into the air. The gear shifts down. Avila lets go of the rope and dashes to one side as the tractor rolls off the ledge. Autumn falls, then plummets into the water below. She looks up as the tractor crashes into the water above. It grazes past her as she paddles back. The water fills with bubbles. She swims swiftly toward the underwater gap in the rock while the tractor hurtles toward her, darkening the view. Above, Avila peers over the edge. Waves crash into the bottom of the sinkhole as it fills completely with seawater. Flashback under Avila's covers. Present day. In the deep blue water, Autumn flails her arms. A large sea creature glides past as Autumn kicks her way back into the underwater cave. An orange fish swims as she squeezes through a narrow gap. An elephant seal swims in the deep blue water, turquoise light reflecting off its back flippers. Underwater, red seaweed sways in the current as pale light glows above the surface. Autumn wildly moves her limbs through the water. On the shore, waves crash against the beach. Autumn's head surfaces as a wave pushes her onto the shore. The water crashes into her as she crawls toward the beach on her hands and knees. She collapses onto the sand near a large pile of seaweed. Waves roll toward her as the ocean sparkles under the sun. She bolts upright as water splashes her face. She looks around, brow creased. Something red sticks out of the sand. She crawls over and pushes sand and seaweed from it. Then she slides her hand across the surface of the red surfboard. A wave crashes into her from behind, the water burying the board in a layer of sand. She pats her feet along its surface, bends over, then sticks her fingers into the sand. She pushes sand from the board as another wave envelops her. As it recedes, she pulls up the board from the beach, props it up on its end, brushes sand and debris from its surface, then looks up and scans the beach. She ducks behind the surfboard, then peers around the side. She discovers a trail of small footprints that leads further up the beach. The trail then disappears behind a rocky cliff sticking out from the sand. Autumn drops the board and races down the beach. She disappears behind a cliff as a wave rolls in and drags the broken board back out to sea. Autumn maneuvers across the Rock Island coast. A wave splashes her as it crashes against the boulders. She flinches, then catches herself with her arms against a rock, and holds out her arms as she balances. Autumn approaches a gap in the boulders. She swings her arms and jumps to the other side. A wave splashes into her as the sun sinks lower into the ocean. The silhouette of her shadow climbs, as seals bicker through a gap in the rocks. She climbs another rock, then jumps from boulder to boulder. Elephant seals bask in the sun on the beach below. She reaches the top and surveys the beach. A massive bull rests in the gray sand beneath her. Flies buzz around the creature's eyes as they slowly open. Autumn startles and flails her arms as the bull's eyes snap open, jumps up and opens its wrinkly snout. The seal's blubbery body bounces against the sand as it charges toward another bull. The elephant seals clash against each other, their teeth bared. Their noses flop around as they thrash, and their necks bleed as they gouge each other with large, pointy teeth. Autumn pulls back and holds her hands to her chest. One of the seals writhes as the other rips into its back. Autumn draws her arms to her shoulders. The bloodied mammals clash, then chase each other down the beach. The smaller seals around them flee into the water. The bulls battle in the water, her body shivering as Autumn whips her head around. Below, Scarlet pokes out from behind an elephant seal which lounges on its side. She crawls around to its belly, jumps up, then reaches out an arm. She claps her hands over her mouth as it roars at her. Autumn falls onto the beach. Scarlet reaches an arm out to the seal. Scarlet charges toward the seal. She climbs onto its body. She flops onto her belly as the seal shifts, then blows through its rubbery nose. Her arms flail as she balances on top of the creature. Autumn throws her hands into the air and falls on her knees to the sand. In the sinkhole, Avila lifts her gaze from the water below. The seal flicks sand onto Scarlet as Avila climbs. Scarlet bats away the flying sand as Avila scrambles from the top of the hole. Avila dashes for the cliff. Autumn moves toward her sister. A seal scratches its face with a clawed flipper as she passes. A smaller one flicks sand onto its back as it eyes her. Nostrils flaring, the other seals lift and bend their heads toward Autumn as she passes. The bull's nose bubbles, and its round black eyes blink. Scarlet perches on its back as she waves. Her teeth chattering, Autumn checks behind her, then inches forward. A seal bounces toward her, its mouth wide. Avila races toward the cliff. Avila reaches the cliff's edge. She picks up and hurls a rock at the bull's back. Its eyes blink open. With a rock in hand, Avila stops at the cliff's edge. She turns and dashes off. She rolls a large rock toward the edge. Brow furrowed, Autumn holds her head between her hands, then flaps her arms. Avila nears the edge, then she bends to move the rock. Scarlet falls onto the sand. Avila's head appears from the top of the cliff. She smiles wide and gives a thumbs up. Autumn flails as Avila digs her feet into the dirt and pushes the rock off the edge. The rock breaks against the cliff top. The bull flops its head around in the sand. Gravel crumbles from the cliff as Avila pushes against the weight of the large rock. She falls forward as it hurtles off the edge and crashes down the side. Autumn squeezes her eyes closed, ducks, and lifts her hands over her head. The rock flies through the air, then lands on the seal's back in front of Scarlet, who tumbles off. Scarlet scrambles backward as the elephant seal charges her, its massive body bouncing against the sand. Autumn covers her face with an arm. Scarlet cowers back as the bull slams its body down before her. Another elephant seal bull rises from the ocean. Scarlet's blue eyes stare beneath her waving hand. The second bull charges toward the beach. The bull behind the toddler opens its mouth wide as she whips around. Her face contorts as she looks at Autumn. Covering her face with an arm, Autumn sprints towards Scarlet. Seals raise their open mouths and charge forward as she passes. Scarlet whips her head back and forth from bull to bull as she stands before one of the towering seals. Autumn races down the shoreline. The bull charges towards Scarlet. An emerald wave crashes behind the bull as it fixes its gaze on Scarlet. Her body twists as she turns to face the other bull, which charges from the opposite direction toward her. Eyes wide, her face tightens as the bull draws near. Autumn sprints forward and pulls Scarlet out of the way by her shoulder. As the seals collide, the sisters collapse onto the sand. The bull's teeth rip into flesh as they thrash against each other, their raw necks bleeding as they fight. Hand in hand, Scarlet and Autumn rush down the beach away from the bulls. The sisters climb the bottom of the cliff wall. Reaching for Scarlet's hand, Autumn helps her up the rock. She wraps an arm around Scarlet, leading her up the steep, grassy slope. Below, the bulls clash on the sand. Scarlet turns and stares at the commotion. The large mammals' noses flop as they tear at each other's throats. Scarlet and Autumn climb the slope on all fours. Scarlet's feet slide against the rocky dirt as she moves higher. The ocean gleams turquoise behind the sisters as they near the top of the cliff. Scarlet clings to the cliff above Autumn. Her foot slides against the smooth rock surface. Eyes wide, she clenches her teeth. Autumn crawls under Scarlet, who latches on. Autumn grabs the stone as her hands grip the steep cliff. Scarlet hangs from her back as she clings onto her sister's shoulders. Gray waves crash on the shore below. Scarlet's mouth stretches into a grin. Autumn strains against the weight as she climbs. A seagull flies by as their heads appear over the cliff edge. The ocean darkens as the sun sets behind the girls. Autumn pulls them over the top of the cliff on her hands and knees. Seagulls glide around the red and white striped lighthouse. Clouds reflect blue lavender tones as the sky darkens. Elsewhere, cogwheels and gears shift and turn as machinery comes to life. A filament glows orange and rotates in the dark between wires. Nearby, gears spin rapidly, their teeth interlock as they turn. The lighthouse's clockwork twirls and spins as the machine comes to life. A purple coil glows bright orange with electricity. Above, the lantern light brightens. White light beams from the lantern as the unit turns and shoots light over the island. Autumn flinches back from the light. Avila peeks out from behind a bush as her sisters fall backward over the cliff. She dashes toward them. Her hands reach out and grasp Autumn's arm as she falls backward. Scarlet's legs fly through the air as she hangs from Autumn's back by her neck. Avila's face twists as she pulls back. Autumn sticks her tongue out as she chokes under Scarlet's weight. The older sisters lock their wrists together, and Avila tugs her sisters toward her. They collapse forward at the top of the cliff onto Avila. The lighthouse beams against the sky. Avila watches the lighthouse with a grin. Hand in hand, the girls pull each other up from the ground. The sky glows purple as they face the lighthouse. Light envelops Avila's face. The girls' bare feet move across the grass as they race toward the lighthouse. Autumn runs ahead of Scarlet, while Avila trails behind. White birds fly around them, as the majestic lighthouse towers before them. A few scattered clouds dot the backdrop of the lavender sky. Warm light glows from atop the lighthouse, and small white buildings surround the structure. White light orbs sparkle in the air as the lantern rotates. The sisters run up to the base of the lighthouse below. The girls run down the entrance steps as they survey the outside of the structure. Autumn pushes her young sister up the sloped base, while Avila pushes Autumn from behind. They climb the white cement toward an open window. Scarlet ducks and moves through the small window. Scarlet runs onto the balcony and peers down at her two sisters below. She runs through the door as our view slowly moves down the tall length of the lighthouse to Avila and Autumn below. Autumn scratches the back of her head and yawns, while Avila bites her nails. Light beams through the door as it opens before them. They climb up the steps and disappear into the light at the entrance. Then, the door closes. Inside, they climb the stairs. A golden light bulb shines above the sisters as they climb. Outside, the lighthouse lantern beams light across the twilight sky. The girls reach the top and approach a red metal ladder. They climb the ladder up to a room above. Inside the lamp room, Scarlet pokes up from the top of the ladder. She scans the room and studies the bright lantern as it rotates. Avila studies a commemorative plaque. Autumn kicks open a door. Inside, Avila stares ahead, and her eyes dart. On the balcony, Autumn sinks down against the railing. In the lantern room, Avila reads the plaque at the top of the ladder. Her face drops, and she drops her gaze. Outside, Autumn presses her forehead against the railing and sobs. Avila watches Autumn through the doorway. She bites her bottom lip, then steps toward her little sister crouched on the balcony. Scarlet places her hands on Autumn's back. Avila crouches beside them. Avila wipes her tears away. Flashback at the house. Autumn watches through an ajar door. At the lighthouse, Autumn pushes her face against the railing. Scarlet cries into her shoulder. Avila wipes tears from her puffy eyes. Flashback. Autumn peers up toward her sister. On the lighthouse balcony. Flashback. In the present, Avila smiles at Autumn. The sisters embrace as a group. Scarlet's cheeks dimple as she grins at Autumn. They all stand and look over the railing. The lantern shines above them. The light passes through the night sky over the island. Later in daytime, Autumn climbs a stone pillar, where black seabirds perch at the top. She grabs an egg. Avila sparks a fire. Scarlet jumps into the water for a fish. She drags the fish from the water by its tail. An elephant seal raises its head and bellows into the air and bounds into the water as the sun sets. The three sisters cook a fish in a spit over a fire. Feathers hang from Avila's hair, while Scarlet blows out a flame from the stick. The sisters smile together as Autumn wears the Lightkeeper's hat. Description by Audio Vault, transcribed and voiced by Kyle Warwick-Mathieu. Title: The Island of Lost Girls, a Schmidt family film. Credits: a film written, directed, and made by Autumn Fiore Schmidt. Autumn stands on the rocks behind a tripod and camera and looks over her shoulder at the sunset. Avila and Autumn play on the rocks. Avila Marie Schmidt. Scarlet grins as she swims underwater. Scarlet Rose Schmidt. Anne-Marie Schmidt. Brian Schmidt. A seal waddles toward Brian. A seal swims underwater. And Riley Schmidt. The children smile at us. Autumn trudges along the cliff in a purple jacket. Anne-Marie raises a boomstick over the girls on the surfboard. A sea lion waddles down a rock, and the sisters float through the cave as Brian splashes them. Scarlet runs along the beach in her fuzzy vest. She and Autumn raise their arms as a wave crashes beside them. Avila, a woman, and a dog dash across a mossy field. Additional help by Heatha McGrath. Cinematography. Music by Callie Wang. Credits and more scenes continue. The girls scramble over rocky boulders. Nighttime, hands clasped, Autumn and Scarlet dance beside a fire. Avila grins, the white feathers in her hair. Daytime, Avila adjusts braids near a perched seagull. She reaches toward the gull and dips her finger in a puddle, then spreads the white across her nose and cheeks. Her sisters scare the gull away. A title appears over the calm ocean water, the island of lost girls.